So the last few months have been really exciting. Canon EOS R5, Sony A1 just now, Fuji is pushing the barrier with the GFX 100S. Fuji has also found a very interesting niche in the APS-C market. All the players are kind of trying to outdo each other, coming forward with so many new interesting things. And amid all this excitement, Nikon anticipates huge losses at the end of the financial year. The question is, where will Nikon go from here? The question is, will Nikon ever turn around? The question is, how will they compete? Before we talk about Nikon's future and its present current condition, I thought that let us have a holistic look at the entire Nikon story. And I do not think that the Nikon story is all about its financial in isolation. I have almost a 75 slide presentation right in front of me on the laptop, but I'm really struggling to keep it within 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So it probably is going to be a two-part thing. And if I have to finally break it down to the second part, then this is the first part. But any honest conversation with Nikon cannot start with its balance sheet. It has to start with the idea that is Nikon, the culture that is Nikon, the history that is Nikon. And this is not necessarily looking backwards and trying to find something in its past. It is actually to be able to understand a sort of its present and its future depending on its past. Some of the most iconic pictures ever have been taken by Nikon cameras, with Nikon cameras. And I'm showing you some of them as I'm screen recording my laptop here. The most common, the most well known of them is the Afghan girl, and of course there I've shown you a few others as well. Now Nikon has always been a very popular brand, picked up by many celebrities, many celebrity photographers. It's been a part of popular culture in our stories, movies, all of that. So when we talk about Nikon, we have to understand that Nikon is bigger than the balance sheet that some of us seem to be talking about on YouTube. Beyond its soft power is, I think for me, is the philosophy of the brand Nikon. What is that philosophy? What is that ideology that the brand lives by? If you look at Nikon's symbol, for example, in 2003 when they created the new Nikon logo, what they wanted to call out, what they wanted to establish with the logo is the idealism of reliability and quality. And we see that being often repeated by Nikon in many things. I'll give you some examples. But when Nikon articulates its philosophy, it talks about trustworthiness and creativity. Well, they are in the creative business. They create tools for creativity. So therefore, I've highlighted the word trustworthiness here. You see how it plays out. I'm trying to tell you that these are Nikon's strengths, their assets. But at the same time, they are also Nikon's weaknesses. A few weeks back, a top-ranking Nikon official talked about how they actually made a mistake by coming late to the mirrorless market. And he also talked about, I think he was the head of the video division, and he also said that Nikon going forward is going to focus a lot on video capabilities in their upcoming cameras. So when they asked what was behind your decision to come late, and he said, we really wanted to perfect the EVF before launching mirrorless. We didn't want the blackout, but you understand the intent, and it was not only about megapixels for them; it was about entire viewing experience. Therefore, when you actually use a Nikon camera with a 3.7 million dots EVF, you will see how that is much better than comparable EVFs there in the market. Whether you pick up a Canon or a Sony or a Fuji, doesn't matter which brand you pick up, or even a Panasonic, you will see the Nikon EVF consistently outperform them in terms of the viewing experience overall. They look so lifelike, so real. Image reproduction is exactly what you see through the viewfinder. That fidelity is astounding, and that is not achieved by putting a lot of crude megapixels in that viewfinder, in that display, but by actually using optics inside the viewfinder. And how many brands actually have thought of using high-end optics, the same kind of optics that brands actually use in the lenses in their EVF? It's a rare kind of thinking. And these are some of the things that actually stop Nikon from just launching a product. A lot of people, you understand the Japanese ideology of Kaizen. They just launch something and incrementally improve it over time. That is not the case when it comes to Nikon. They really want to perfect something and give you a camera that it just does what it is meant to do. I think it's a more empathetic company that does it. Now coming back to the main question, will Nikon survive? So when we attempt to answer this question, please keep some of these things in mind that we have already spoken about: the culture, the history, and the philosophy of Nikon. Will it survive? Let me try and answer this question differently. This gentleman is Martin Wiegel. He is a long time advertising strategist, one of the most well-known advertising strategists in the world. How does he articulate the idea of strategy? He says that strategy is narrative. He says at the end of the day, strategy is the art of getting people to do something, as in form of storytelling that creates nudges for people to act in a certain direction, in a certain way. And why is that important right now? If you have to look at Nikon holistically, you will look at four things right now. You will see that they have a huge base of loyalists. One. Second, they have products, like I said, that are perfected. That's what they intend to do. They have well-rounded, balanced cameras. Exactly what hybrid needs to be. It doesn't need to be best in everything, but it needs to be a very good combination of about 98% of what you can do in video and in photography. So that balance in video and photo features is what makes a good hybrid camera. The fourth thing is today we have been hearing about Nikon's financial restructuring, or the way they are reorganizing the company, keeping profitability in mind, and long-term viability in mind. But you look at the narrative around it. The narrative around it has been not a huge base of Nikon loyalists, but a bunch of old people. A bunch of old people. Let's get a picture of, it makes the brand suddenly look irrelevant, uncool, backward. It's very clear how engineered this narrative is. They're not really creating products that are perfected, but Nikon is actually very slow to innovate. I mean, what comes to my mind is Apple has not been innovating, but they have been perfecting existing technology. So when you buy an iPhone, it's the best phone. You don't feel like, changing the phone within a year, which is what, even if you get a flagship, any other brand of phone, you're likely to change it within a year, 18 months. Okay, well-rounded, balanced cameras. No, they don't do that. What they do is they don't create the best camera for anything, not the best at anything. Financial restructuring is now, that story is now cut as financial unviability. Perhaps it's going to go down, All of this, what does it all amount to? It amounts to a simple idea: Nikon's reputation. Nikon's reputation. Every time today someone is thinking, okay, I really like the Z6 II, I really like the Z50, I love the Z7 II, should I buy it? I want to, but will Nikon be around? Is Nikon a brand I can be proud of? When I buy this $3,000 camera, will people say, you've done a good job, it's a good brand, it's a good product? Will people say that? The softer association with the brand is being impacted by conversations, not by hard truth, by conversations, by narrative creations. And who are doing it? Now, reputation is built by two things. Reputation is built by marketing, and reputation is built by word of mouth, which is based on the product experience and how the products simply are in reality. So if you look at it right now, Nikon's reputation is being impacted by Nikon's lackluster marketing, and at the same time very good marketing coming from Fuji, Canon, Sony. Very recently, Matt Granger has spoken about how he doesn't want to be a part of the Sony ecosystem because how he called it, the environment was poisonous, it's very toxic. He used the word toxic there. But one of the things that jump out from there is that how everyone who's associated with that, with the brand's atmosphere, the brand's environment, they are encouraged to always be positive about the brand, right? Even when they're not sponsored. The other side of the reputation is built by product, but understand, building reputation product takes time. It doesn't happen in one day, because that route is about, get a good product out, let people talk about it, let people experience it. It's not going to be a pushed message. Word of mouth is when you have a natural conversation with someone and that guy says, you know what, I actually love this product. I love using this camera. I love driving that car. It's so silent. It's so economical. It's so sturdy. All of those things. It comes from real consumers and mostly comes from one-to-one interactions. That is word of mouth. You feel that when you meet another consumer buying something at retail spaces. That is word of mouth. Do not mistake a reputation of a product or a brand on vlog sphere or the blog sphere as as product reputation. That does not count as word of mouth. Moving on, what this has done is that the conversation around Nikon and other brands in the context has introduced an element of doubt. It's a new way of looking at the brand. That element of doubt is part of that narrative strategy. It is, and the doubt around Nikon's financials, I argue, is part of that narrative strategy. Just take a pause, and what I want you to here understand is that narrative strategies are created, pushed by active participants in the market. There are people who are forming ideas, who are strategizing on PowerPoints, like I have a presentation ready here, on boards, whiteboards. They're thinking through things, using models, marketing models, and thinking, what is that one thing I need to say so that it has X impact on people's perception, leading to Y behavior and leading to Z purchase. The element of doubt around Nikon's financials has to be understood in the context of narrative strategy in the competitive camera marketplace. And what do they say? They say, let's cancel Nikon because there are a few reasons, and there are a few reasons I'll just read out. Extraordinary losses, losses. IAF, oh, it doesn't work, but it works. Sony or Canon should buy Nikon. You know who say that, right? It's good, but meh, I should Canon. Well, because Canon actually got into the video market much earlier than Nikon with the dual pixel AF and the flip screen. A lot of the vloggers actually started out with Canon, so therefore automatically they have a natural sort of inclination towards loving Canon. But just because they love Canon, they can't love Nikon. Single card slot, who cares? Single card, it does not fail. Anything can fail at the rate of 1 in a million, but that doesn't count. Anyway, now I'm going to show you a few videos on the conversations on Nikon, and I'm going to react to those videos. I'll put the links to those videos in the description. So let's begin.
Nothing's coming of these extraordinary losses. Digging into what the term extraordinary losses means, it doesn't mean much. In this particular case, Nikon, of course, they built out a factory to produce cameras and stuff. The company has to pay taxes to the Japanese government based on the value of that equipment. And the value of that equipment is largely determined by how much it's going to be able to produce. They expected to sell, I don't know, a whole bunch of cameras, and now they think we're not going to be able to sell as many cameras. Thus, that equipment is not as valuable as they originally thought.
So this is where you go. Again, this is narrative. Extraordinary losses means any losses or profit. There is extraordinary gain as well. Profit and losses made with some transaction that is not part of the company's main business. For example, if you're in the business of selling milk, if you sell your cows off, that gain is extraordinary gain. Or let's say when you sell your cows, you sell it at a loss. That loss is an extraordinary loss. Extraordinary means, therefore, is anything that is outside of the ordinary function of your business. It does not mean you are not able to sell enough milk, therefore you made some losses. That is a perception that's a takeout from this conversation. Anyone who's watching this is thinking that extraordinary losses still has something to do with the sales of cameras or their product that they're making. No, it does not. Extraordinary losses is everything about that what Nikon is not about.
So Nikon are already behind the only two competitors that they're really directly against. Sure, Fuji and Panasonic have lower market shares, but the offerings that they have are quite noticeably different. Yes, Fuji don't do full frame cameras, so Nikon have an advantage on them there, but their APS-C setup is far more established with far more APS-C specific lenses, and arguably they have quite a big brand loyalty behind them as well.
Well, I suppose if you only make APS-C cameras, you should have APS-C lenses. I don't see how that's a strength. That's something that's mandatory.
Similar story with Panasonic. as I've already said, they've got, a history of cinema cameras as well that Nikon don't have.
Why do you need to sell cheese to be successful in the milk business? Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
The lenses, given the price point, it's not exactly the best way of going about getting out of a struggling situation.
I'm sorry, but it's a very stupid statement to make. Most people, your volumes of 1.8 lenses are always bigger than 1.2 or 1.4 lenses. So they launch the 1.8 lenses first. But for them to be able to actually sell a lot of 1.8 lenses, they needed to have sold a certain amount of bodies. Of course, when they started out of the system and a lot of people started attacking them, the potential sales of the Z6 and Z7 got impacted because of that. So the potential for those lenses to be sold, that was kind of limited by the number of bodies that were sold.
They're comparable to the competition, but I don't think the system as a whole is quite as appealing.
What does quite as appealing mean? You're not looking for a girl. I think I like her, but overall, I think that girl is more attractive. This is not how people actually buy cameras. A real reader does not buy a book by the cover. And for the most part, very tiny percentage of the market is going to buy and if you actually look at it, most of the YouTubers who have actually reviewed the A1, they have confessed that they are not going to get the A1. Therefore, just because something is more exciting does not mean that it's going to open up the market. I'll bring in the case of XS10 by Fuji. I don't think it's a groundbreaking camera at all, but it hits a sweet spot of providing the right kind of functionality in the camera and at the same time offering it at a certain price that is palatable for a very wide market. Same in the case of Z5, unlike the EOS RP. That's how you create products and market. You package them well. If you look at Fuji, they have been using the same damn sensor for the past 2.5 years with the same processor. Nothing's been changed. They're just adding one more picture profile here, deleting one in the next one. That's about it. A flip screen being added, a hand grip is being changed, the layout is changed. They're very tiny changes, but the way they're cutting the market fine is how they're remaining relevant in those in those price segments.
Nikon's in deep financial trouble. They lost 75 billion yen or $720 million. Is this the beginning of the end? A loss that's sure to capture the attention of Mitsubishi's chief financial officer, as Nikon is owned by Mitsubishi.
No. Nikon is not owned by Mitsubishi. It's something called Keiretsu. That system works very differently. It's like a family of companies connected through a banking system, and that banking system owns some shares in Nikon. Nikon owns some shares in that bank. So it's very connected. You can say it's like a family loosely connected. It goes back in the Japanese history and their ways of doing business, the way the social structures are. It's far more complicated than this. There is no ownership structure within Mitsubishi and Nikon. That's not how it happens. So no, Nikon's financials don't reflect in Mitsubishi's financials.
Nikon isn't a small standalone company. It's a small camera division.
No, it is a small standalone company backed by a bank.
With the backing of a large multinational conglomerate. How does Mitsubishi view this loss? Well, Olympus has...
They don't care. But if Nikon is in trouble, Mitsubishi will come in with some money because they look after each other. That's it. They look after each other because that's been their culture. That's not because Nikon is a subsidiary of Mitsubishi. No, they're not.
Mitsubishi's revenue as of September 2020 was down 26%.
This section is completely irrelevant because, like I said, the business model followed there. It's called Keiretsu. Please do a little bit of research there. There are videos on YouTube. You'll be able to find it. That this is not how it works. They are disconnected from each other. They are two separate and different companies. It's like me and my brother. We have our own lives, but we're connected. If he's in trouble, I'll go and pitch in with some help. If I'm in trouble, he's going to come and pitch in and help me out. Does not mean he's under me or I'm under him.
When will Nikon turn around? Number 2, how much will they lose before Nikon turns around?
How does it matter to you? If Nikon turns around and their services and cameras are producing good stuff, how much they lose before they turn, how is that question relevant to anyone? Are you the investor in Nikon? Are you talking to Nikon stockholders? Or are you talking to your camera buyers? How is the second question relevant?
And lastly, should they divest?
Okay, well, let's not talk about the third point. Mitsubishi is not invested in Nikon.
They're unlikely to turn around things until they can get a mid-level camera that
No, Nikon is turning around right now as you speak. I'll talk about that later. So, like we saw, whether deliberate or not, there is no clear understanding of the terms that are used, the financial terms, the overall understanding of what a marketing strategy or a product strategy should be. But what you are left with is essentially a feeling of, like I said, a doubt. You're left with a doubt. You just need to say, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm not. You need to just sound iffy about it. The moment you sound sort of doubtful about a system or a product, that does the job. That dissuades people from actually investing in that system, and that's what's been happening for a long time. So in this section of the video, what I wanted to tell you is that when you look at a brand like Nikon, you need to look at it holistically in its entire gestalt and not just one part in isolation and completely disconnected with the context, because that is everything. Context is everything. So this is the end of this section of the video, and I have to kind of carry the conversation forward to the second part of the video because there's a lot to come, and in that I'm going to tell you, I'm going to really simplify the understanding of Nikon from a financial, corporate structure and strategic point of view. I'm going to give you some sense of what Nikon is already doing, but we are not spotting that. I'm going to clarify that to you, and then I'm going to also talk about how Nikon should look about the future, but I hope you will be able to see some objectivity in that conversation. So that's what's coming up next, and I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please do subscribe. I'll see you around. See you soon. Thank you.